Okay, so question 5M5 from the second edition of Statistical Rethinking. As always, if you're going to run this code, make sure that you have installed and loaded the rethinking package with these code blocks up at the top of the Colab sheet. Okay, so the question is highlighted right here. And I think I will read this one verbatim just to get the idea. Okay, so one way to reason through multiple causation hypotheses is to imagine detailed mechanisms through which predictor variables may influence outcomes. For example, it is sometimes argued that the price of gasoline, predictor variable, is positively associated with lower obesity rates, outcome variable. However, there are at least two important mechanisms by which the price of gas could reduce obesity. First, it could lead to less driving and therefore more exercise. Second, it could lead to less driving, which leads to less eating out, which leads to less consumption of huge restaurant meals. Can you outline one or more multiple regressions that address these two mechanisms? Assumes you can have any predictor data that you need. Okay. So, this question, there's no, I guess there are wrong answers, but probably many right answers. And I'm also not entirely clear what it means to outline one or more regressions, and so I'm just going to do my best version of that. So when I think about regressions and how I want to build a regression, I tend to think about causal mechanisms, largely because I kind of have a background in science where you're trying to learn mechanisms, and this question even kind of maybe softly urges us to think about causes, detailed mechanisms by which predictor variables influence the outcomes. In other words, how do these predictors cause the outcome? Okay. Or at least, well, anyway. So one of the tools that gets used very heavily in this book and that really, I think, are helpful are DAGs, right? So we can draw this DAG that hopefully embeds our assumptions about how these different mechanisms may affect obesity. And so I'm going to do that here with the DAGity library here in R. So here I'm just detailing my DAG, and you can look at that and play with that with the Colab code. This is just where I want the different variables to show up on the DAG, and then I'll draw the DAG. I think all of this right here is part of the DAGity package, but draw DAG is part of the rethinking package. So I think that you need rethinking for that. So anyway, we run that, and so here is the DAG that I've created. Okay, so I have that gas price is ultimately affecting obesity here on the other end by a couple of mechanisms. One is driving and expendable money. So driving may affect obesity by increasing exercise or decreasing restaurant attendance or whatever, and that exercise and restaurant attendance might somehow affect obesity. Okay. Also, this part right here wasn't really detailed in the question, and I'm just putting it in there, but presumably if gas prices are higher, the amount of expendable income that people have for anything is decreased, and that might decrease their restaurant attendance. Okay, so so now if I was going to start outlining a regression or some regressions, I would base it on how I thought that these mechanisms were working. Okay, so if I was just simply interested in how gas price affects obesity, regardless of these intermediary mechanisms, these mediators, I would probably just use a regression something like this, that obesity is affected by gas price, right? And now here, the beta gas coefficient would represent the extent to which gas prices were affecting obesity. And that beta coefficient would represent all of the arrows, all of the paths that go from gas price to obesity. It would represent this one, and it would represent this one, and it would represent this one. All right, and that's fine. But now let's say that I was interested in one of these mediating mechanisms. And so I think that the example that I use here is driving. So what if I was curious about how much the effect of gas prices, or let me say that again. What if I was curious about the extent to which the effect of gas price on obesity was mediated by driving, right? So now, again, the effect of driving has several paths. It has this path and this path according to my DAG, right? But if I wanted to know how much of that effect was being caused by driving or mediated by driving, then I may have to have an additional regression, okay? So my additional regression, so not in place of, but in addition to the first regression, might look like this, where I have gas prices being affected, as well as now I'm trying to estimate the effect of driving. Okay, and so now the beta gas coefficient, whereas in the first regression was the effect of gas prices on obesity, now it has a slightly different interpretation here, which is the effect of gas prices on obesity after controlling for driving. Okay? And because we are hypothesizing that driving, or our model is that driving is a mediating variable for gas prices, well then this beta gas coefficient is going to be the effect of gas prices on obesity after I've already accounted for the effect of driving, right? So in other words, by adding this driving term in here, I've blocked all of the paths that start from gas price and go to driving, right? And so now the only paths available for gas price, for the beta term for gas price to affect obesity, is this indirect path, okay? So so now if I wanted to find how much driving was mediating the effect of gas price, I would need to take the difference between this beta coefficient, so the beta gas from the second regression, minus the beta gas from the first regression. Okay, so I'm sorry if that was a little bit complicated, but this topic gets covered a little bit more in depth as the book rolls along, so I didn't want to go too much. I hope that kind of gives you an idea. If we wanted to test other intermediary variables, we would begin devising more or different regressions in order to do that. Okay, thanks.